before I start cutting the dovetails, I need to note which part's going to go where. So I'm looking to see which faces I want facing out. So that looks good. I think I'm going to put the most colorful faces facing out with the lightest colored faces up. So I like that. So I'm going to use the triangle marking method to mark what goes where. So in essence, the top and bottom, right, if I'm looking at it from this perspective. So I'm going to put a triangle on here. So the top half of the triangle, the bottom half of the triangle, and then if I put those together, then I'll have the left half of the triangle, the right half, and then the bottom. So that will indicate what part goes where. So next, I'm going to lay out the tails on the ends of the longer pieces. First thing I need to do is mark the baseline. So I've got my marking gauge here. Gonna set it just slightly thicker. Than the material. The short pieces are my pin boards, so I'm only going to mark the faces on these. On the tail boards, I'll mark the faces and the edges. Okay, next I'll mark the tails. So I want these two boards aligned as best I can because I'm going to cut both of them at the same time. By putting these next to each other, because I'm cutting perpendicular this way and angled this way, I can cut two boards at the same time. Save a little time, and in some ways increase accuracy, because when I'm lining up the saw, I've got a longer line to line it up to. So I'm going to use my dividers here to mark this out. I'm going to come in about 3/16 from the end. And then I want I'm going to make a fairly small space between the pins. We'll see how this works. So I'm just trying this. There's 1, 2. Okay, so the distance from that original dimple to there is the space between the pins. That's a little too small. I want to go a little bigger than that. Check that. 1, 2. Okay, that looks about right. So I'll stick with that. So a little heavier dimple from that side, and then come back the other direction. There we go. I'll use my dovetail marker to mark these. Now it doesn't quite reach, but I can extend the line when I'm done here. Oops, let's turn that around. Okay, ready to saw. All right, let's say you don't have a dovetail marker. I want to show you another way to mark the angles for the tails. So I prefer a 6:1 ratio, which means if we go down 6 inches and over 6 inches and draw a line, that's the angle we'll get. That angle is about 9.5 degrees. So let's walk through how that works. So I'm going to measure over here just on any board. Light color works best. I'm going to put a mark 1 inch over there, and then a mark down the side here 6 inches over. And I'm going to connect those 2 points. Okay, so that is our 6:1 ratio or 6:1 angle. So now I'm going to take my sliding T-bevel and I'm going to set this to match that angle. Now notice I've got the blade centered in here. I don't want to use it like that. I want to put it so it's in the middle there. And I'll match that up to that angle. Okay, so that looks good. We'll tighten that up, and now we'll mark some tails. Okay, I've used the dividers to put marks across the top for the spacing. So I'm first going to draw lines through those divider marks. Okay, now we'll draw the lines on the front, or the face. Okay, there we go. So it takes an extra step, but it works out just fine. Now I got a little ahead of myself on that. I should have marked the other ends before I made my saw cuts, but I'll be okay here. So I'm going to transfer the marks from the first cuts over to the other end of one of the boards. And you know, this doesn't have to be perfect. If there's a little bit of a mismatch, no one's going to notice, because these aren't, you know, these joints aren't next to each other. So I'll line this back up here. There we go. And now I can mark these like I did before. Okay, there we go. I'll go ahead and saw these, and we'll make the next set of cuts after that. Now I'm making these cuts one at a time because these are really critical on alignment. I don't want to try and do two at a time on these. Now I was using a fret saw there, which has a very small blade. I've switched to a coping saw blade now. Now this blade will not fit in that curve. So what I need to do is start in the middle. And then I'll come back the other way. So that still works. Next, I will pare down to my line. I'm pretty close there already, so I'm going to start right there. And I can tell, because of the little bit of tear out there and the sound of that, I need to sharpen my chisel, so I'm going to sharpen that up. Okay, just spent a few minutes at the sharpening stone. There we go. Okay, I've got a little more material here, so I'm going to take this off in two passes. The ends look pretty good. Just need to clean up the corners a little bit. Okay, that looks good. We'll move on to the rest of them. Before I go on, I wanted to show you this other vise. This is called a Moxon vise. I guess designed by Joseph Moxon quite a while ago. So one nice thing about this, it gets the work up about 6 inches higher than my normal bench height, which particularly for me is really helpful. I get kind of sore working on a lot of these in my regular vise. So I'm going to continue working on this. I made this. I was able to get a hold of a wood threading tool to make these parts. So the whole thing's made out of wood. There was no special hardware required other than the tool to create the thread. And that works great for this. It's real handy. I've got leather on this side. This surface is I've got it just clamped on here flush with the bench, and just makes everything a little bit easier, particularly for a taller person. I've got the board, the pin board, clamped in a vise at the height of a block. Doesn't matter what the block is. So I can support the tail board. So I want to align it at the base. I want to align it at the top edge here. And I've made sure this is the correct one based on my triangle marking method. So that all looks aligned. So I'll use my marking knife to transfer the tail profile onto the end of the pin board. There we go. I'm getting more tear out than I'd like to see. I'm going to go sharpen my chisel again. Yeah, that did not take much. I was literally at the stone probably a minute, and only on 8,000. I just touched up the tip and made a big difference. All right, everything is cut and trimmed. So, looking at my marks, so this piece should fit here. Okay, that looks nice. And all right, last piece. It looks good. Got a little gap there, but that's the only one. So we're looking pretty good. Happy with that. We'll fix that when we glue it up.